Friday morning. You know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Alabama Slam podcast. I'm your host, Corey Hanna.
What's going on, guys? Patrick Akers.
And I just want somebody to look at me like R-Truth looks at John Cena looking at jorts.
All right, let's get into WWE for the week. We've got a premium live event coming up sometime this weekend in the middle of the night in Australia. In American time, it's the middle of the night. So the first thing we've got here is I just put a note that said, Bloodline segment, Patrick is mad, because we were texting about that the other night, and it sounded like Patrick had another rant ready to go.
I came on this podcast. It had to be last week. And I said, if I get more of The Rock 1999 and less of Dwayne Johnson, I'm going to be very upset. And I'd be damned if it didn't immediately start out that way. And I just lost interest. Listen, I'm probably in the minority here. It seemed like a lot of people loved it. I'm not interested in just seeing a retread of The Rock circa 99 to 2001. I'm just not. I'm not interested in that. Obviously, a lot of people are. A lot of people loved it. But to me, it doesn't land the way at 33 years old that it did when I was 11.
Sure.
I guess. So, like, it's coming out and I'm going to smack the herpes off your lip. Like,
oh, that entertained.
What is this, man?
That's one of my favorite lines.
This Bloodline saga, compared to where it was when Sami Zayn was at the apex of it, and everything felt real. You remember the Royal Rumble, where he gives the chair to Sami Zayn, tells him to hit Kevin Owens in the head, and the whole crowd, like all of the feeling that we had when we were talking about it on this podcast, to now it's just been reduced to like grade school jokes again. And like, why is The Rock confused about why Cody Rhodes is in this match?
I think you're over analyzing that part of it, because I don't think he's confused about the winning the Royal Rumble. I think that was more him trying to point out there was no point in him challenging Roman because he had already lost that match. He wasn't going to have a different outcome. He should have just stuck with challenging Seth Rollins and made it a day, because he's wasting his time.
Well, cool. Your explanations made a lot more sense. He should have said that instead of saying what he said. Like,
yeah.
I'm not gonna fill in the plot holes for it. I still have yet to get an explanation about what the deal between him and Cody was.
There was a whole bunch of tweets that night that were like, "So Rock doesn't know how the Royal Rumble works."
Yeah, that he himself won back in when he went at 2000.
Yeah,
whenever,
I guess.
But like, now we have gone through this whole thing. We've gotten no explanation as to why Cody Rhodes was so willing to give up his WrestleMania spot. And listen, this will probably still be a good build to WrestleMania. All I have is the build. The match between Cody and Roman is probably going to be whatever. It will probably be just as good as it was last year. But like, I don't know. Clearly I'm in the minority here because Salt Lake City was eating it up. People on the internet were eating it up.
I mean,
kudos for him.
It was entertaining. I mean, yeah, it was. I literally, right before this, I watched The Rock give a promo from 2003. It was February 20th, 2003, Rock promo from Indianapolis. So he was challenging, it was a Hogan versus him setup. And it wasn't copy and paste, but it was, let's put it through a couple, redraft things of him talking the same crap. So, I mean, you're getting the same thing you got from 20 years ago, but I don't know, it entertained me. Anybody that makes fun of Salt Lake City has my money, because I hate Salt Lake City. So you can make fun of those inbred Mormon people all you want. I probably just lost some demographics there, but I don't care.
Yeah, but I mean, he just did the typical heel thing. He's like, let me just go out here and make fun of your city. Right?
Well, yeah, he got a little more in depth though about it. I mean, he got real specific about that inbred and all your sister wives and all that other stuff.
I mean, listen, his delivery on that stuff is great. I mean, listen, that was his bread and butter. But I've seen that already, and there's better versions of it on the network that I can go watch. And I think I just had higher hopes coming off of The Rock coming back and potentially doing this angle where he was some kind of authority figure and he was on the board. And I guess I just had higher hopes in my mind that they would do something maybe a little bit more highbrow. And instead they just went back to, nope, here's Hollywood Rock. And
that's what he is.
But do you agree that there was an opportunity to do something different?
100%.
And I guess that's where I'm disappointed. It's just the same old, same old.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm in the minority on this. A lot of people loved it. And that's great for those people. Hopefully they will enjoy the build. It's not like I'm going to stop watching. But like from when he immediately grabbed the microphone, I was like, I know what this is.
Yeah.
You aren't in the only case of what you're asking. I mean, you've got people like Bully Ray and other people that are saying, "Hey, we need to hear that reason." So maybe hearing it from people that are in the industry will get them to dial in on it some. Maybe they're just saving it until after the Elimination Chamber so they can focus on that and do it there. I don't know. I would like to hear it too, but if I don't get it, I don't get it. I'm not going to care at this stage.
I don't think we're going to get it because I don't think they have one. Because this was not, I'm convinced at this point, this was not the plan. The plan was they were just going to give this match to Rock and Roman, and they did not expect the type of uproar that it got from fans. And to their credit, they pivoted.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, we talk about WWE not listening to the fans in the past. Clearly, this is an example of them listening to the fans. It's just that they threw in a massive plot hole that they seemingly have no desire or creativity to try to fill in any kind of way.
Yep.
Like they've got to be.
I would agree with you.
Somebody's got to be telling them, like, people are seriously like casting doubt on why this has happened. Like, people got to be going to Triple H if he's not seeing it himself and being like, why are all these tweets say that The Rock doesn't know how the Rumble works? Like, or is it like you said, they're just saying, fuck it, we're going to ignore it?
I think it's just full steam ahead. We're just going to ignore it. This is the train we're going down now, and this is what we're going to do. Can I bring up a little theory, though, that I was thinking about when I was watching, I guess it was Monday Night Raw, during Sami Zayn's promo? We talked about a couple weeks ago Cody kind of assembling the Avengers to kind of take down the Bloodline. Let's just assume at WrestleMania The Rock doesn't wrestle and they hold it off for whatever reason. So basically you have Roman's going to have a match, Solo's going to have a match, Jay's going to have a match. And on Cody's side, you have obviously Cody, Seth Rollins, you have Jay is on his side. And I was just thinking, if they were going to make this WrestleMania feel big, and they were going to make it feel like, if we are going to tell the story of the Bloodline dissolving, part of that story is that sort of a new breed of superstar kind of takes over the WWE. What if Roman Reigns goes to Gunther and he goes to Logan Paul and he says, listen, this WrestleMania is about us. We have new people who are coming to take us out. You are all going to be not honorary Bloodline members, but like the Bloodline is going to have your back if you have my back. So like we get Gunther versus Sammy, we get LA Knight versus Logan Paul, we get all these people from Roman's past that he screwed over. All those ghosts are starting to come back to topple him over. I think that would be a cool story. Now whether they go with that or not, but like you could see the go home for WrestleMania being like Roman, Rock, Solo, Jimmy, Gunther, Logan Paul standing on the ramp, Cody, LA Knight, Jay, Sammy, Seth Rollins all standing in the ring, and like boom, we have here's the story of WrestleMania.
Right.
I don't know, just something I was thinking.
Would be cool. I don't know.
Do that.
I don't think they'll do it, but yeah. Speaking of Raw,
no, I think you're gonna
go ahead.
I think you're gonna get a little bit of that because, like we said, you're gonna have some Avengers assembling. I just don't know if it's gonna go as West Coast Avengers as you're wanting.
Well, you had that scene of Paul Heyman talking to Grayson Waller in the locker room.
You had him talking to Braun Strowman too.
Right. That's true. But like these guys now, like because Drew has now been helped by the bloodline. Drew's whole thing, they're starting to play off that he's a hypocrite, right?
Yep.
It's not much more hypocritical than if he joins the side of Roman Reigns in this fight after Roman Reigns screwed him out of the title win at Clash of the Castle, right? If you can't beat him, join him, type of thing. I just think that would make this WrestleMania feel a little bit bigger. Maybe this doesn't need to feel that bigger. The Rock is going to be involved somehow, and we get Cody finishing the story, but it's just something I was thinking about.
So let's go ahead and switch to Raw. I don't see any other notes for SmackDown. We got a couple things to touch on for Raw, and then we'll quickly run down the Elimination Chamber card before getting into AEW. So from Raw, I made a note about some odd production choices. I don't know if you guys noticed those too. Like, there was that weird backstage interview with Rhea Ripley and Nia Jax. Was that maybe just because like one of them wasn't, or whether they were both there the other night though, right? Because they both had.
No, this is an active choice. This is you have gotten rid of Kevin Dunn. So for 900 years, Raw has had one guy producing it, directing it, and it has looked the same as always. They have now hired a guy from ESPN, and they are going for that more ESPN sportsy kind of look. So you're going to get those telestrator moments. You're going to get the shot that where they started on the street outside the arena, came in the door all the way down and into the crowd to show you that humongous arena full of people. They're doing it more. They're actively tinkering with the production. I think it worked. I mean, you called it an odd choice. I don't know. I didn't.
I think Rhea was actually in Australia, though, was she not? I think she was there early to do press because this event's all about her.
And maybe because I did see some. I saw her somewhere taking pictures with Dom or somebody in an airport. So it might have been that.
No.
I thought the telestrator thing was a little more funny than anything, but that may have just been because it was their first time with it, and it looked real. It looked like it was supposed to be a joke to me.
Well, McAfee is always going to make stuff more goofy than it is because he is just
good point.
Their production has stepped up though. Like Steven, you mentioned the shot where they started on the ramp and came all the way down to the ring coming back from break. Like, I thought that was really cool. We've talked about it on this podcast a lot. Like, that is something, the actual presentation of professional wrestling is something that really hasn't changed since like the 80s. So that, if there's any place for innovation in wrestling, I think it's in that, how you showcase it onto how you make it more of a television product.
Yeah.
So I like the stuff like that.
And we got less of the 3-second, here's a clip that Dunn was just in love with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the next thing we have is it says Drew or Logan Paul.
Those are my. We're going to get into the Elimination Chamber, but those are my two of coming off of Drew's win, with Logan Paul being what Logan Paul is, and his smack talkery ability to go after Seth. I think that would be a match that I want to see. Want either redo the Drew and Seth angle and have Drew come out with it, or put a fresh face of Logan Paul in there, and I think that would be where I would like to see it.
You got any thoughts, Patrick?
I think Logan Paul, this is where you set up Logan Paul and LA Knight for WrestleMania. They're both in this match. I think Drew McIntyre wins the chamber. He's the sensible choice to go up against Seth at WrestleMania. Because it's not been that long. Logan and Seth just wrestled. When did they wrestle? They wrestled this year or last year, right? For the title?
That's been longer away than Drew and Seth have wrestled.
Okay, yeah. All right. I mean, I guess they could, and if Logan's more full-time, I guess that's a choice. But I think from just seeing Logan's socials, like anytime he throws out a superstar name, he like talks down LA Knight. Like, I don't think that's a coincidence. We still haven't got LA Knight's title win yet, so I think that's coming at WrestleMania. That seems like a sensible choice, and that's why those two guys are in the match. It was a little bit weird, well, not weird, I guess, but like, well, and I mentioned him at the beginning of the podcast, for Sami Zayn, where he was at a year ago to where he's at now. I mean, obviously it's hard to stay on top, but like, this dude has seemingly as of this moment, nothing to do. He got beat by Drew to get into the chamber match. I mean, he had that promo where he said he's going to be a champion this year. What does he do at WrestleMania? It's just kind of odd that there wasn't like a last chance type of thing, the way that the women's division had it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is kind of, I'm not sure what exactly they're trying to do with those segments with him right now. I guess we'll find out sooner rather than later. And the last note we have here, go ahead.
I was going to say, because this was a different style Raw, obviously, because we got a, 20, 30-minute match with Drew and Cody, and while it had some wonky finish, then you had the longer Jay and Gunther match. You had a decent tag, 8-man tag match in the middle. So this was a different flavor Raw than we're normally getting, and I think they pulled it off better than what we're giving them credit for at this point, because we're not really even talking about that because we're hung up on like some either the Cody part or some other things. It was different.
Are they doing a SmackDown Friday night, tomorrow night, tonight? If you're listening to this, I guess
they taped it.
Okay, cool.
So the last, I read the spoilers, like Braun Breaker winning, and there's a couple other stuff in there. Nothing really consequential.
So the last note we have here says, "You will never be a champion without me."
And that, again, we had 2 matches that ended similar because of bloodline interference, but I didn't hate this bloodline interference because it felt very story driven. So it was more okay with me. If it happens, we had gotten out of that phase, especially on Raw, but now that we got back into it, I loved Jimmy coming in there and just talking down to Jay, and that line of, "You will never be a champion without me. No matter how big you are, I'm always going to be your big brother." And what is he? Big brother by like 15, 20 seconds?
A few seconds, probably. Yeah. A couple minutes at the most.
It's when, and the Cole and running down the list of all the championships that Jimmy has cost him. I like that story building they're doing with him.
That's like you mentioned, both of the matches. I think the reason probably we didn't talk about it as much is because, like, especially in the Cody Drew match, the end is just with the bloodline interference. It's one note. It's somebody in a black hoodie comes out. It's the same old, and I don't know how it's cool that they booked Cody and Drew to wrestle each other, considering both of those guys kind of need to be protected at this point. But, like, I don't know, man. Throw a little bit more creativity in there than just like, here comes Solo. Well, at least with the Jimmy and Jay thing, Jimmy rings the bell, right? At least that's something different.
Yeah.
It ain't like a little Solo with the hoodie. Like, what is that? We've seen that,
but I think you're supposed to. That was the exact effect they were going for, to have it be a direct callback to him interfering with the Drew match at Clash of the Castle, so that they could do that juxtaposition to get him into that hypocrite moment.
That would have been, and you're right, that's a nice callback. If they would have protected the Solo hoodie thing, but they've used it 17 times since the Clash of the Castle thing. So if they kept it and protected it, and then they pop it out at this match, okay, now that's a cool callback. But, like, we've seen Solo in the black hoodie. I think that's the only thing that man owns. It's either a black hoodie or he ain't got no shirt on. That's it. Like I said, at least in the Jimmy interference, he starts ringing the bell. Like, that's a cool little kind of wrinkle. And I get what you're saying, it's a callback, but, like, at least in that one, they showed some kind of creativity of how do we mess this up. I do like also the juxtaposition of how the 2 guys who were helped thought about the interference. You get in Drew's case, he kind of accepts it. In Gunther's case, he looks like he's pissed off, and he rolls out of the ring immediately, doesn't even let the ref, like, raise his hand, because even though he's a heel, he does have a type of honor about him, and he probably does know that he was beaten that match. So, like, that's a cool little story for him, and another nuance to his character. But no, you're right. This show did have some good wrestling in it, which, they should probably do more of, especially on Raw, considering it's 3 hours.
Yep.
We can kind of let some of these things go for a half hour. But no, this was a really good episode of Raw.
So let's run down the Elimination Chamber card real quick. We don't really need to spend much time on it because we can recap the show when we record next week. But you got the Women's Elimination Chamber match. It's Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair versus Liv Morgan versus Naomi versus Tiffany Stratton versus Raquel Rodriguez. Becky Lynch is probably the favorite, right?
Yeah.
Or do y'all think anybody else is going to win?
No, I think it's Becky, but the big thing to me is that it seems as if Jade Cargill was going to be in this match, and they pulled some kind of audible and put Raquel Rodriguez in there. What's
the reasoning behind that?
Right, like how bad is Jade? Like how not ready is she that they kind of do something like this?
I don't think it's about bad. I think this is, do you put somebody in there for their first match in a sense? I mean, yeah, she was in the Rumble, but that's not going to be as much of a match as this would be. Do you put her in there just for her to eat a pin so that Becky can be the number one choice, whereas Raquel, she can eat a pin all day?
Right, but with Jade, isn't there something to say if you have her in a ring and she's standing across from Becky Lynch and Bianca and Liv Morgan and all these people who have been in high profile spots in the WWE before, just a little bit by osmosis, it tells the fans like, oh, this girl's a big deal because she's in the ring with Becky Lynch or she's in the ring with Bianca.
I can see that.
To just have Raquel in there is, like you said, like she's eating a pin, but like, cool, we all know she's gonna eat the pin now. At least if Jade was in there, you could kind of convince yourself like, yeah, maybe she could win the Rumble or win the match. Now, like all of us think it's gonna be Becky, I think, because this is where they've made it specifically whoever wins this is going for Rhea's title, and we've been waiting for the Becky Lynch Rhea Ripley feud now for months.
Wow. Yeah.
But they've done a good job selling the it might not be Rhea. And then you've got the Becky Nia, which would be awful, but
there's zero chance. I don't know what the betting line on Nia Jax is. She has to be the most historic underdog. They're probably not even a line. That's how one way this thing's gonna be. This pay-per-view is literally set up to celebrate Rhea Ripley as a star. Zero chance she loses.
Right. Let's get to the tag team championship, the Judgment Day versus Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate. I'm assuming Priest and Balor retain this one, right?
Yes.
Yeah, although I do like the New Catch Republic. That's a cool name.
Is that what they're calling Dunne and Tyler?
Yeah. Yeah.
I missed that somewhere. Oh.
Yeah.
To answer your question right now on what is this? I can't even see where. It's just a news story on it, so it doesn't tell me where it is coming from. Rhea is a 5,000
plus 5,000.
Yeah, and Nia Jax is plus 1,000. So bet $1, get 1,000. Bet 5,000, get $1.
Yeah, that's if Nia Jax wins, there would probably be some kind of investigation about WWE potentially screwing out people and cooking the books and stuff like that for Vegas if that were to happen.
Yeah, I think that one's going to be fairly obvious about who's going to win there. Men's Elimination Chamber match: Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton versus Bobby Lashley versus LA Knight versus Kevin Owens versus Logan Paul. So you said earlier you think it's Drew, right?
Yeah.
I think that's probably right.
Yeah.
I would not be mad if it was Logan Paul, but I really think it's going to be
the right
Drew.
Choice, yeah. So let's go ahead and get into Dynamite. We've got 2 Dynamites to cover. A couple of quick points. And this first one is Dax and Moxley. My only real thought there, and this can lead into the one we can switch over to it shortly. But my main thought with highlighting this match was this is just one of the reasons why you watch AEW, was these 2 dudes going at it. And then we can get to them in their tag team match shortly and talk about it a little more. The next thing I have is Garcia and Copeland with interference by the patriarchy, and that I blurt laughed when Mama Wayne was out there in the turtleneck. I thought I was going to lose my shit. I laughed so hard at that.
She's been a good addition to this group without really having to kind of do anything. She does have a sort of... I don't know if she's ever been on screen before. She does have a type of presence about her that comes through the lens, which is like sort of impossible to teach. So maybe she kind of seemingly passed that down to Nick Wayne, because he, for as young as he is, he kind of has that too. This group, Christian Cage is doing no wrong right now. The dude is on another level. It's like him and Drew McIntyre for like hater of the year. But something about Christian is just, Drew is more, y'all hate me, but I'm right. And Christian is more like, I wish somebody would lay this dude out, because he is like diabolical. Like, this is evil stuff, the real evil stuff. So it's cool to see those two type of characters on these two different types of programs. And but yeah, his promo with Garcia from this Wednesday, which we'll get into, was boy, oh boy, that was something.
So let's go ahead and get there. We can switch back and forth to these Dynamites. I don't think it matters. Did y'all catch that the reference? I only saw it on Twitter. Was like the address that he mentioned while he was talking to Daniel was like the address to a cemetery.
Yeah,
I guess where Danny's mother is buried. Is that right?
His father, yeah.
His dad, yeah. Just crossing a line.
Now, my note from this one is I'm not allowed to talk about this match. And you know why I'm not allowed to talk about this match.
What, Garcia versus...
Cage. Because there's at least 5 guys who should have this match before him, but I'm not allowed to talk about that.
You're not... Listen, you were right about the rankings, okay? You're right, all right?
But
if we don't know we'll just give you that. You got that W. I don't know what you want from us. All right? It doesn't make no sense.
But you were talking about Cage. He pulled his weight in this, because there was, when Garcia came out, he got some cheers, but people didn't give a crap. But the moment that Christian Cage came out there and went into the dad stuff, and the crowd went just full on, booing his ass off and giving him the reaction that he was rightfully deserving, was when he managed to pull the heavy lifting that Garcia was not doing and got that man over. And it was only because he was talking shit. Garcia was not doing the heavy lifting and the least of that program.
Yeah, I like the fire from Garcia there at the end, but you're right.
I was about to say, the fire at the end, though, that's what he did a good job about. And that was kind of the pitch that he needed to hit. Like, yeah, he was a little bit rough in the beginning, but like if you're giving if you're like, this dude has to accomplish at least this one thing in this promo, and it has to be, he has to show fire and want to whoop somebody's ass, he at least did that. Now the rest of him, he just needs more seasoning on the mic. He hasn't got a lot of mic time. If you could somehow take Danny Garcia's wrestling ability and Daddy Magic's mic skills and put them into one person, we would have like the ultimate sort of New York City kind of babyface guy. But like,
what he is now is he is generic dude with a dead dad at this point that Christian is carrying.
Yeah, so
but for AEW too, though, he also is, at least the fans recognize he's a great wrestler.
Yeah,
this could be something like, at least he's not generic dude he's not Hook.
Yeah,
like and we'll which I'll get into.
We'll pretend that we don't know what he's ranked. Also, leading into next weekend at the pay-per-view.
We'll just forget. Yeah, we'll forget.
Just gonna have to roll with Steven on that one. Didn't even fucking matter.
They did not even do rankings. Did not even do rankings this week.
Maybe they dropped it already.
Maybe. My next note says the Young Bucks wrestling in their suits was funny as shit. Then they knock Tony Schiavone down, and Darby Allin comes in and goes ham on the mic. He referenced Cody. Talking about there used to be an EVP here who cared, blah, blah, blah. And he calls him out on what the mission statement originally was. and we can go ahead and bring in some stuff from last night on this. There was a great promo from Sting and Darby, which apparently was at Sting's house. I read on the internet. Do y'all believe that or no? Or was that just some generic set of doors?
I did not care for that promo. I'll be honest. It did nothing for me. I didn't watch. I watched the highlights for this Dynamite, and I did not watch the previous Dynamite. Did they beat up Sting's kids or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, they beat the hell out of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I missed that. So the whole
they
Darby
wrestled some
about
jobbers. Yeah, they wrestled
Didn't
jobbers
do
last
anything
week
for
and
me.
then went after Sting's kids. Both of his kids were in the front row of the audience or whatever. And then we get this whatever's happening with Ric Flair, and I saw some stuff about it online before I saw the actual segment. But I didn't know what he said or anything. It just, the thing I said saw he may be getting into business with the Young Bucks. And then, so the first thing out of his mouth was I was brought in and blah, blah, blah. And then I haven't been on here in 3 weeks, which is funny as shit because just a couple days ago, I was I thought Ric Flair was supposed to be involved in some of this stuff. And I was he hadn't been there in several weeks that I remembered. But I also knew there was probably some stuff I hadn't seen. But he just makes it about him and then, goes and knocks on the Young Bucks door. I was what are we doing here?
This was okay. So 2 weeks ago, I want to talk about the Darby promo solo and how much I absolutely hated it because it had nothing to do with what the story they're trying to tell. So, like we told Steven, keep in mind why the Young Bucks have blood on their suit. Why? Because they jumped Sting and Darby after they win the tag team championships. They beat the shit out of Sting's kids. They bloody up Darby, right? Literally the next week, Darby comes out to make the save. That is the 12th thing that comes out of his mouth. Instead, he starts talking about all this insider stuff. There used to be an EVP here, blah, 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 blah. Well, that's not the story, bud. The story should be, you got these dudes whipped your ass. They whipped Sting's ass. They beat up Sting's kids who aren't even wrestlers. They bloodied you up. Let's talk about that. And if you want to drop a little hint and say something like, you guys have never been in my camp. You guys never wanted me to succeed, but these fans got behind me and now I'm at the position I'm at and we're going to beat your ass, blah, 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 blah. It's something like that. Instead, you turn it into this weird, inside baseball thing where now we have, the narrative is operating on two different levels that don't even make any kind of sense. You get a Cody chant in AEW, which... if Cody ever comes back to AEW, the biggest babyface in the world will be that guy. But then, you get the promo this Wednesday out in front of the house. That's a little bit more of what this should be about. At least they reference, the kids getting beat up. And I thought Sting's line, I thought Sting was great in that promo Wednesday night. But then, the Ric Flair stuff came before that. What this is all just we don't need any more story than the fact that this is Sting's last match, right? Sometimes it just needs to be that simple. It's Sting's last match. The Young Bucks touched his kids. They're trying to ruin his moment. Now he's got to get their comeuppance. Why we have Ric Flair back here cutting deals and being all pissed off because it's not about him? It's it's not about you. It's Sting's last match.
You touched on something that bugged me about the Darby promo because I saw the Darby promo from the couple weeks ago where he got a Cody chant, which bugs me because why are you trying to get a guy from a different promotion over on your show? I'm sorry, you move on from that. You ain't trying to get a Cody chant going. I appreciate that you're referencing history, but you let that go. And then they come back and do it again this week with a Wardlow getting a CM Punk chant. Because he's talking about beating up that guy. And it's quit putting over WWE. That is, if you were wanting to be different than them, stop talking about them. Make me not think about them. But the fact that you're out there putting two of the biggest stars of the other promotion over makes me realize that, this isn't that.
And the Wardlow promo could have just been as easy as management doesn't want me going up against these top stars because I beat the hell out of them. Boom.
You don't, you don't need to mention the real champ, because the real champ, all you've done is discredited every champion in your organization at this stage.
It's like they're doing like these work shooty type of promos in places where it doesn't make sense. Like you only need to do so many of those. You can't just hammer it home. Like that's what made MJF's, fucking Mark promo to Tony Khan. That's what made it kind of a big deal, is because like, oh shit, that's the first time anybody's said stuff about Tony Khan specifically. Now, of course, they fumbled the ball in AEW fashion. They fumbled that ball and fumbled all that storyline. But like, especially when it's something as easy as like, it's Sting's last match. That's the story. Or with Wardlow. Oh, you can just do it as, I beat the hell out of these people. That's why I don't get title opportunities, which also is idiotic, because again, if this company had a writer's room, they could go back to the fact that, when was it that Wardlow won something and didn't put himself in the Rumble because he said he's waiting for the right opportunity to challenge for a championship? Corey, I don't think Steven was on the podcast yet. Corey, you and I talked about that. Be like, that's dumb as hell. That makes no sense why he's not in this match.
So do you think the new hire from the week, the lady that was brought in basically because of Mercedes Moné, do you think like she'll have any sort of, like, she's chief of creative or vice president of creative or whatever, right? So do you think that's actually a step in the right direction? Or do you think that's just a title to put on somebody to be in charge of Mercedes Moné?
At that one.
Yeah,
I bet Mercedes has the best storylines when she comes into AEW, because they're going to be the ones that probably make sense. That have
is
cohesion
Brian,
to them.
What is it, Brian Gerwitz hire of this? But
the Ace Steel hire.
I am concerned about any woman that comes into this promotion based on the match that we saw yesterday with Deanna and Madison Rayne. Madison Rayne is their coach, and if that's what we got out of their coach, that ain't it, bro.
Yeah, sometimes coaches coach for a reason.
Well, that's true. That could be that. It's a good point. Also, Mercedes is not going to be having a lot of coaching.
Yeah,
but she puts
she's the
herself
star that comes in, and the head coach is like, yeah, he just does it. She does her thing over there.
But Mercedes Moné has one thing that she does well, no matter what promotion she's in. She goes all out and gets herself injured.
She's coming to the right company.
She does have a track record. Right? She does have a track record of that. Yeah. So
if that's what she's coming into, and that's what they're working with as far as the other people, we're going to be in the same position we are this year with Adam Cole, MJF, CM Punk, all of them people, just where they have a whole lot riding on people, and it's holding pattern.
I was expecting there to be a note from you, Steven, about the way the show was booked last night, because one of the things I saw like a couple hours before the show was that they were dealing with a lot of injuries, and they had to like scramble and line some things up at the last minute, and like there was a chance that Orange wasn't going to get to wrestle, and that I was expecting there to be a note about injuries.
I took y'all's advice. I took a break from this and just, I like saw what your notes were, watched some highlights, got the quick dump of everything. So it made that show so much more enjoyable when I don't have to watch the whole thing.
Also, why is Tony tweeting that? Who cares? You're the creative dude. Figure it out. Why are you the only company that has visa issues? How come WWE never has any visa issues? What's happening? Who's in charge of that department?
Hold on. WWE has visa issues. They just don't talk about it from the head thing. You get that from the dirt sheets, not directly from them. Because
I've never.
Keep the
when's the last time WWE had a visa issue?
Dragon Lee.
So nobody. This week I've heard of Kyle Fletcher, Pac. I've heard of Gim. I've heard of both of the Lucha Bros.
I love Pac, but who cares that he has a visa issue? When was the last time he was on that show?
Well, I'm not saying I don't care either, but what I'm saying is like that can't be. I don't like you before the show starts tweeting that out as some kind of semi-excuse, being like, well, if the show sucks, here's the reason. It's like, this is a TV show.
From what I saw, it kind of sucked. It made me realize, watching the highlights, it made me realize something very clear. You have three people that all do the same finisher.
Oh,
Jon
whoa.
Moxley, Hook, and Samoa Joe all do a rear naked choke finisher.
Yeah, but Samoa
Well-
Joe's looks a lot different.
Well, yeah, he's the only one that does it good. But
Yeah.
but I watched those I did the highlight of I watched the entire of the FTR BCC match because that was the best match on there.
Yeah.
And then I got into the what I swear to God, I thought it was an 8-man tag match because I was like, there's 2 other people in this match because there was nothing happening this. I know there was more people in this match because it was so damn boring, but no, it's just 6 of them. And, then I'm like, oh yeah, Hook does, you're shoving Hook down and he's not good. Can we let this go? I was just happy that Cage didn't take the pin on this one, honestly. I mean, who cares about Brian Cage and RVD being in a match with Hook?
Yeah. I mean, it didn't
Yeah.
have anything happening there, really. I mean, you still had a little bit of the Swerve and Page thing, but
That
we didn't need a
entire
6-man
was
match
based on-
involving them.
Nah.
You were right, though, and I do have this note about FTR versus Mox and Claudio, which I think we'll get some more of next week. Didn't they make that official for Revolution, right? Because this one went to a draw.
Yeah.
This was a thing that I thought, because I'm sure we've seen it before, but it was just a thing that had just happened last night. Like, FTR's in the back doing their interview, and they're like, "We want another fight," blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden, here comes Mox and Claudio walking. I'm like, this should be happening more often, right? Because all these guys are going in the same area, basically backstage, and it's like we just have to pretend that they're not around each other. So I thought it was kind of funny and kind of neat that, like, oh well, here they come.
Something that bugged me in that match. It's a stupid thing, and I know a lot of people like this, but it bugs the heck out of me. You got Moxley and whichever one had him locked in the sharpshooter. Claudio comes in and puts the other one in a sharpshooter. What is the point of, if you are in a submission hold, you got your partner in a submission hold, why are you coming in to put a submission hold on the guy who is not a legal contestant when you were not a legal contestant, when your dude is in a position to be tapped out just to show off that you can put the other guy in a submission hold as well? Knock him off so your guy doesn't tap in those remaining closing seconds to make you lose the match, instead of just trying to do this I can do the same thing you can do shoot fest viral moment, because it was stupid.
I thought because at some point some of these things the answer is just like because it looks badass. Like at some point that's just the gotta be the answer. These boys were throwing hands though. Like you want to talk about physicality. Them forearms were landing, and as someone who's been hit with hard forearms, it sucks to take it once. It really sucks to take like as many as they were throwing. And like you want to talk about kind of the at least style wise, what sort of separates the AEW product from the WWE product, I would have to say like the physicality would be the number one thing. Like these dudes are throwing bows at 110 miles an hour, and that's kind of crazy.
When did FTR start doing more flips and not fists? Because they were doing a lot of flippy stuff, and that used to be their whole gimmick of we ain't going to do the flippy stuff because we're a throwback. When did that stop? When they got to AEW?
What were they doing? What flip stuff were they doing?
They were doing flippy stuff in that match. They were jumping off the top rope and everything.
I mean,
burned out because
Cash has always done a dive though. Cash has always done it. Cash did the suicide dives in WWE.
No, that was their whole gimmick of not doing that stuff.
Yeah, no, their DIY match that they had that in NXT, there was a spot where it was dueling.
Maybe. I mean,
Suicide dives back.
It's been years. But I'll have to go back.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but like, I don't know.
I remember the shirt. No flips, just fists.
They're not doing spot fests out there. Like,
yeah,
they're not doing Lucha Brothers matches just because, we don't see Gunther go off the top rope, all the time. Like when he does, it's going to be something to look out for, right? Most when you think of Gunther matches, you just think about slap fests, and power bombs and shit. But every once in a while, he'll go up on the top rope, and you're like, "Oh shit!"
Probably because also too, there's a lot of dudes in AEW that throw really hard chops too. So like in WWE, they kind of had that market cornered for a little bit with the chops.
Right.
But now, you know, in AEW, you got Kingston throws a good chop, Mox throws a good chop, Claudio throws that hell of a damn European uppercut that sounds like a chop because he's hitting the dude so damn hard.
Danielson likes to kick.
Danielson, yeah, you got kicks. Everybody's laying it in. So then you got to go the other way. Now you got to go flips.
What's your note on Danielson? It looks like that's the last thing we have to cover.
This is something that was going to have more steam before I got undercut on Twitter here by O'Shea Jackson, because he's stolen one of my thoughts here this week. And I think it might all come from the same thing. I hit up on this Twitter stuff, and they were talking. They broke down the storyline between Eddie and Danielson about how all these random Japanese people that he is fighting right now are all Kingston's heroes. So he's trying to wreck Kingston's heroes right in front of him. And to me, I shouldn't have to go on Twitter to have some rando tell me that. You've got 3 people sitting over there with microphones in front of them telling me that you can tell me that. And the AEW Twitter group will tell me I shouldn't have to be spoon-fed stories. But my thought is I shouldn't have to, if I'm watching a TV show and it is a new TV show to me, you should tell me something. You have to assume that there's going to be a new viewer that doesn't know that stuff, that doesn't want to have a PhD in wrestling nerdology to get past the AEW hipster gatekeeping bullcrap to figure out what the hell and why this is important. You are paying people to tell me why this is important, so tell me why this is important instead of making me do a deep dive.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you for most of that. Like, I know that like some of a lot of these are dream matches for him and important to him, but to somebody like me who's only been watching really for a few years at this point, like they don't mean shit to me, most of them, right? So a little bit of background would be helpful. I mean, we don't need a 5-minute segment, but a couple of minutes, so 1 to 2 minutes would be beneficial.
If you're going to give them a 20-minute match, you're telling me that you can't throw that in there for 5 to 10 minutes while you're talking the garbage that you're talking over there for 20 minutes? Because there's a lot of garbage that those guys are just doing in jokes to themselves about Tony Schiavone's wife making sandwiches to each other and garbage like that. They are literally just wasting time on the microphone when they could be spoon feeding me this information. That's not spoon feeding. It's just quit being a hipster.
I mean, sometimes on the other side of that though, it's like, do I really need a lot of explanation just to see a good match? And that's what they're giving us.
If you were
usually
constantly telling me that the match is a story in itself, yes. Because you know what? If I'm just tuning in, 2 guys slapping each other's chests back and forth isn't telling me anything other than those 2 guys want to hit each other.
Yeah.
It would be nice to have Danielson cut some kind of promo where he explicitly says, your heroes are all these Japanese guys. Well, guess what? I'm going to pick your heroes apart one by one in front of you. Then I'm going to pick you apart. That's never been. No one has said that. Well, and so, like, if we're going to be critical, badass? It would sound that. If we're going to be critical if I'm going to be critical of The Rock and all the things and all the plot holes that has, then we have to do it both ways with AEW too. And AEW has a bigger problem about this, where they just expect fans to know who Jun Akiyama is. I know who Jun Akiyama is. Most people don't.
Yeah, it is literally the hipster of wrestling at this point to me, where it's like I am not cool enough to be in the know, and I don't consider myself to be outside the know in wrestling, because I've watched a lot of wrestling and not just one federation. I've dabbled everywhere, so I feel like I know, but I don't know all of it. Help me. I shouldn't have to do a deep dive on Wikipedia to figure out who somebody is and why it matters.
Yeah, We've talked about this before. The tribalism that is in wrestling right now, it's toxic. It is not helpful. Like listen, I get that people are, and this is on both sides. So Steven's talking about, like, there are the AEW hipsters that just shit on everything WWE does because it's WWE. But I don't know, maybe if it's just because I was online more this week, there seems to be a growing contingent of anti-AEW people that not only talk crap about the product, but like seemingly actively want it to go under. And I think that is the most insane thing of all time, because one doesn't, like, WWE is on fire right now. Nobody can take that away from them. They're packing out arenas. But to me, I don't know. We don't do this with any other art form, right? Like, whatever your favorite musician is, unless it's Beyonce and Taylor Swift, they're not selling out football stadiums. They're not probably even selling out basketball arenas. Like, you probably like an artist that's doing shows in front of 2,000, 3,000 people. Like, Corey, I know a ton of bands that you've gone to that have probably had 500 seat shows, probably 1,000 at the most.
Oh, yeah. Steven, like, the same as well, yeah.
Yeah, like, we don't judge any other kind of art form based off like its commercial success, but for some reason every time you start talking about wrestling, they're like, well, AEW's only done blah 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 ticket sales. Like,
there is one, and I think the crossover demographic is probably there. When you start getting into comic book stuff, Marvel versus DC will generate this same kind of tribalism. Mind you, it's died down somewhat, but especially when you're thinking about the movies, there is this hate of wanting one of them to fail over the other, because it's just always been an us versus them mentality of them. And I think that with wrestling, you are getting a lot of audience crossover in that, because it's all spandex. But
yeah, and you might be right, because I'm not in that comic book world, but like, for anybody that is out there, like, yes, I hope AEW doesn't succeed. To me, that's crazy, because some of the reason why WWE is hot right now is because there's an alternative and there's competition, and they're looking at what AEW has done successfully in the 5 years that they've been a company, and they have brought some of that over and changed it to their model, and like, that's why WWE is hot right now. And to just sit there and be like,
had almost 2 million people for the first time in years this past.
And to just sit there and be like, oh, I hope AEW fails. It's like, well, one, all those wrestlers are going to be out of jobs. And two, like, we spent some amount of time here on this podcast. We all love Christian Cage and the work he's doing. Guess what? If there was no AEW, he's not in WWE. He's not going to be there. So, like, that is all of that's gone. Kenny Omega, like, all these guys. And so that's, to me, this whole thing, and like I said, maybe it's always been there, and I'm just now kind of seeing the worst of it. But I don't know. This is the tribalism shit is hit an all-time high, and it's ridiculous.
Is Edge legitimately injured again?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I just think he's got a pretty sweet deal that says I don't have to go to Tulsa if I don't want to.
Well, I think that's probably it for the week. Next week will be a big week. If we record next Tuesday, that'll be the night before the go home show here in Huntsville. We've all got tickets to go. Should be a fun show. They've already announced Will Ospreay will be there. His first official, I guess, AEW debut. He's been on the show before, but this will be his first time under contract, right? I'm assuming we get something big from Sting and Darby, and probably Ric Flair, right? Lord knows what that'll be. Yeah, I mean, they're doing Dynamite and Collision that night, so we should be 4 hours of, should be a lot of fun, I hope.
It's going to be a long night,
Yep. And then I think I'm driving over to Florence on Friday night for night one of New South Hoss. Hunter Drake versus Braden Toon should be a lot of fun. If you keep up with New South at all, those guys have been friends for a while. Drake was the guy that got his belt because Toon won the briefcase last year and then immediately turned and gave it to Drake for whatever reason when Toon won the title off of Kenzie Page. And he helped him get the belt, and they had a friendship for a while, and then quote unquote, things fell apart there. But both of those guys put on great matches, so that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Hopefully they'll be back in Huntsville soon.
When they hear this, you got 3 days to tell us what the sign should say.
Yeah.
And then we'll have Revolution next weekend. So obviously it'll be a couple weeks before we get to recap that one. But I think that's going to be a good show. I think Takeshita and Ospreay, that's going to be a really good match. Just in terms of straight up wrestling, right?
Yeah, I'll pay $50 just for that. That's all I need. I need Ospreay to come to the VBC Huntsville and just have a long cape that says, "I'm about to save this show."
Bruv.
Good on him. I hope he succeeds.
But yeah, man, I think that's it for us. Y'all follow us on social media, on Instagram and X, Twitter, I guess, whatever you want to call it these days. Twitter, I still call it Twitter. At Alabama Slam Pod, we're on Threads as well. You can follow our network of fellow podcasters at thealabamatake.com. You can follow the Alabama Take on all social media. We've got other folks over there doing podcasts about two sports podcasts. We got a book podcast, TV podcast, et cetera, et cetera. And unless y'all have any final thoughts, or is that it for the night?
I think I've dumped my thoughts.
Patrick got his headphones off. He must have a kid in the room. But yeah, man, we'll talk to y'all next week. And what up, little Holden? I see you, little man.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.